We want to go to Mike Valerio right now with some new information for us. Mike, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. It's a little difficult to hear you because, of course, we're right in the middle of the nor'easter. But let me ditch this umbrella since we're live on the air right here. And we are right outside of Leornardtown High School. And you have a whole multitude of parents who are coming in phase one of this nor'easter to reunite with their children. We just were behind these trees right over here. We'll get our photographer, Rebecca Nair, to show you the scene right here. You can see under this polka dotted umbrella, you just see every now and then a student and their parent walking side by side, getting out of what one student and parent called just an absolute horrifying mess. I spoke with a student with our photographer here maybe about 20 minutes ago, and she had some arresting details that we never heard before. She said that she started to walk in the school building during the 7 o'clock hour, and she usually turns right, she turns left into a different hallway outside of her routine, and she sees a female on the floor. And I asked her, could you be sure that this was one of the victims? She said she didn't see blood. Somebody yelled at first that this student may have been unconscious, but she told us that she just knew that with all the chaos, it's something that she had seen on the news in Parkland, Florida, was happening inside of her school, and she ran. As soon as she saw that student on the ground, she saw her feet and legs not moving. That student, a junior here at this high school, just ran as fast as she could, similar to, of course, what any other student would have done in her position. We've also seen, they just eluded our field of view, but this is very much also the command center for this whole operation. So we've seen members of the ATF from the Hyattsville field office, both field offices that have been dispatched to this location, here interviewing students and parents. Their expertise is going to be, of course, used in this investigation, but primarily from a forensics point of view to aid the St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office with an investigation that they're not usually accustomed to. We've also spoken to parents who have told us that they heard within the past few weeks that there were threats here at this school before. In all fairness to schools here and across the country, in the wake of Parkland, we've heard reports of copycat actors, of people calling in threats to their high schools, either with a real situation or just trying to make a scene, treating it as a joke. So this one mother who we spoke to about 20 minutes ago also said she was kind of shaking her head, saying that she expected perhaps one day this could happen. But when this reality unfolded during the 7 o'clock hour into the early couple minutes of 8 o'clock, she was petrified. She knew that her first instinct would be to come to the school and get her daughter. Her daughter told us that she wasn't inside the same area where the shooting unfolded, but she's going to remember this for the rest of her life. This is what she told us when these headlines come to life for her. It's happened in her small town, something that she would see on nightly news, the evening news, CNN, on the internet, and now it's happened right here. So I would describe this, despite the fact that we are in the middle of this rain and frozen mixed storm, an orderly scene. We have, if we want to shift on over here, police guarding the entrance to the high school and the command center over here, making sure that parents file in an orderly manner. And I would say there are still a great deal of students who need to be reunited with their parents. Parents are coming in, shaking their heads, not wanting to say anything until they say their first words to their sons and daughters. The cell phone service here is overloaded, so a lot of people are having difficulty texting their loved ones. So you can only imagine being a parent, coming here with all of these cars, being directed by police officers, seeing people armed from the ATF, trying to make this into a sense of organized chaos, trying to find their loved ones. It's certainly an arresting scene that we've witnessed here this morning.
Well, it's interesting, too, because I feel like you've gotten a ton of information in such a short period of time. Are you surprised by that?
Yeah. You know, we have good sources here in our newsroom, so I wasn't surprised that the law enforcement partners were able to inform us, and we're able to pass that on to parents who are wondering what's happening with their children and what the response is. We were able to garner from our law enforcement sources here in St. Mary's, as well as the ATF field office in Hyattsville, the main division office in Baltimore, and our contacts with the FBI in Washington, that this threat quickly diminished, that the suspect here opened fire and the situation was quickly contained. So when law enforcement know that, they are willing to share that information with us and trust us with that information to sort of reassure parents that the worst is over from a broad point of view. We do have at least one student who's in critical condition, but for the school, in terms of what happened with the shooter in Parkland, Florida, that shooter was out on the run for an hour. I remember covering that with Leslie and Adam, and we still weren't sure when we came on the air on the news at 5 essentially what happened with that shooter, if he was still on the loose, and if there were other people involved. So bottom line here, the FBI in Washington, law enforcement here locally, were eager to share that information that the worst had ended, but we're still trying to keep our eye on what is the condition of the suspect, the student who's also in critical, if they're going to make it. Law enforcement are guarding that ER room that the suspect is in, so I've been told, and they have a whole litany of questions if he does make it through all of this.
Well, you know, I think it goes back to your point. Sheriff Cameron has talked about specifically the fact that this all happened in very quick succession, from the time that the incident first occurred to the time that the school resource officer got involved to the time that the school responded to make sure that the school was on lockdown, and that eventually, once everything was clear and isolated, that they were able to get the students out of the school in an orderly fashion.
Absolutely, and I've been in situations like this before as a reporter where they will wait to delve all this information to give to the media all at one time during a press conference. So I appreciate the fact that the sheriff was made available and that the spokespeople there for the county were made available to talk to different media outlets, just to reassure this is what's going on and to be so transparent in that process, and also talk about sort of the process they took in trying to contain this situation. We do have some new information from Leornardtown High School right now for parents. They say that you have to have your identification ready for pickup. In other words, they're not going to let any students be released to their guardian or parent without any kind of identification. And there's going to be a press conference at 1 p.m. at Chancellor's Run Regional Park.